Reflecting on high school now feels like looking back at a distant past. I was just an ordinary teenager, grappling with identity, friendships, and the intensity of first love. My parents were supportive but often busy, which gave me plenty of time to ponder life's uncertainties. Being introspective was both a blessing and a curse, shaping my future in unexpected ways. In those years, I experienced my first deep crush, fixating on someone who seemed to represent all my dreams. I was infatuated with the head cheerleader, believing our feelings were mutual and that we were destined to be together. We were inseparable until one night in May, when I saw her with someone else, shattering my world. Devastated, I drove aimlessly, even briefly contemplating crashing into a tree. But I kept going, hoping my parents could offer some guidance. When I got home, my parents were out, and the loneliness hit hard. In a moment of despair, I even tried to access my dad's weapon safe, but it was locked. Now I realize how irrational my teenage mind was, overwhelmed by something that seems trivial today. I fell asleep waiting for my parents, and woke up to a beautiful spring day, feeling a deep sense of shame. We talked for an hour, and I gained a new perspective on my worth. I never spoke to the girl again, ignoring her attempts to apologize. I didn't even ask for the expensive necklace I had given her. After a week, she showed up at my door, but my grandmother sent her away, telling her to move on. Because prom came and went, she went with the other guy. I don't know how their night turned out, but I suspect the sugar in his gas tank delayed their fun. That experience hardened me, making me more guarded in relationships. Years later, my wife, Emma, found a note in a used book I had bought online. Confused, I explained it was The Wrong Man, a book about the Sam Shepard trial. But the note led to an unexpected confrontation. Emma was upset, pushing a piece of notebook paper under my nose. The note was written in delicate, feminine handwriting. "Jeff, you need to divorce that witch you're married to before she drives you crazy enough to destroy her," it read. "I'll wait for you, but not forever. Your love, Terry," it continued. P.S. We had fun one last time. I expect to see those divorce papers signed soon, it ended. I was shocked, struggling to understand. Could it be a prank? Emma was clearly angry. I spent the next half hour explaining that I bought the book online and hadn't looked through it yet. The note must have belonged to the previous owner. But what are the chances the owner's name was also Jeff? The timing was terrible. Last year, I made the mistake of getting too close to a female coworker, Sharon Roberts. We flirted, and it escalated to dinner. Sharon even proposed to me, and I was tempted. My marriage with Emma was struggling. But I realized I loved Emma and needed to fix things at home. That night, I confessed to Emma that our marriage needed work. Admitting my near infidelity was a mistake. But after some rough weeks, I convinced her that she was the only one for me. She seemed to believe me until she found that note. Adding to the tension, I'd been working late for the past 3 months, hoping for a promotion. I wanted to prove myself, especially since Emma's parents never thought I was good enough for her. But all that time away had become a sore point. Emma had also been spending more time with her mother, who never liked me. After a big fight about my work hours, I foolishly called her mother a witch. The same word used in the note. Things only got worse from there. I know some of you might be thinking, just give up, you've been caught. But I swear I'm innocent. I ended up sleeping on the couch that night, unable to convince Emma that the note wasn't mine. She locked our bedroom door. On Thursday, I told my boss I needed to cut back on work hours. He understood, having gone through a divorce himself. I brought Emma flowers, and though she didn't throw them away, the coldness between us remained. By Friday night, things were still tense. Emma decided to spend the weekend at her parents' house. I asked her not to go, but she said she needed time to think. I bit my tongue, knowing that her mother's influence wouldn't help. I spent the weekend thinking about how to fix our marriage, taking long walks with our dog, Samson, and reflecting on how much I love Emma. On Saturday night, I texted her, "Would you consider counseling?" Her response was brief, "We'll talk when I get home Sunday night." Sunday passed, and that night I got another message. "Drank too much at dinner, we'll be home Monday," it said. My frustration grew. I was innocent, and I knew a weekend at her mom's was a bad idea. On Monday morning, Emma came home just as I was about to leave for work. She gave me a half-hearted kiss and said, "We'll talk tonight." Before rushing upstairs to get ready for work, I worked a full day but made sure to pick up Chinese takeout and have it ready by the time she got home. Our dinner was quiet, polite but not warm. After dinner, Emma broke the silence. "Jeff, I don't trust you, and that's not how I should feel about my husband," she said. "Mom thinks I should leave," she added. I cut in, "Let's leave your mother out of this is about us." "I need space and time to think," she said. "I suggest you move into the spare bedroom until we figure things out," she continued. I hated the idea. How does sleeping in separate rooms help us solve our problems? "Well, what about counseling?" I asked. "Maybe, but not right now," she said. "Right now, I need time for myself," she added. I couldn't help asking, "Does thinking for yourself include your mother?" "My mom only wants what's best for me," she said. "If I need to talk to her, I will," she added. That was the end of our conversation. I moved into the spare room and spent the night wide awake. Thinking back, I met Emma while consulting for an NGO where she was interning. I had just graduated from Wharton and was working at a top accounting firm. I was assigned to the NGO to help with their computer systems. And everything went well. The NGO got a new server, and I met my future wife. Emma was about to start her senior year at Princeton. And we spent that summer dating. She was smart, confident, and had the looks of a model. Despite her upper-class background, she treated everyone kindly. From the clerks to the president. Physically, we were a good match. But socially, we came from different worlds. Emma was an only child from a wealthy family, while I was one of 4 kids in a middle-class home. My mom was a second-grade teacher, and my dad owned a mechanic shop. I graduated from Kent State and later earned an MBA from Wharton. I eventually took a job at TMG2 Engineering, Inc., where I now work as a project manager in IT, leading a significant project to migrate our systems to the cloud. Tuesday morning, I woke up in the spare bedroom. After getting my bearings, I went downstairs to find coffee ready. Emma was upstairs showering. And though I briefly considered joining her, I decided to give her the space she wanted. I drank my coffee and then got ready for work in the guest bathroom. The strain between us continued all week. Emma was working long hours. So I threw myself into my project, which seemed to please my boss. On Friday, I texted Emma, "Can I take you out to dinner tonight? You pick the place." 10 minutes later, she replied, "Going to my mom's, spending the weekend." Frustrated, I called her to reason with her. "How can we work on our marriage if you're not here?" I asked. "I told you I needed time," she replied calmly. "It's only been a week, you need to respect that," she said. I tried to convince her to stay, but she wouldn't budge. She finally agreed to consider counseling. "Will I see you before you leave for Manhattan tonight?" I asked. "No, I'm already packed," she said. "I'll probably be back Monday night," she continued. "I'll go straight to work from New York," she added. So it was another weekend alone with Samson. 2 more days to figure out how to fix what was broken. On Saturday, I had an idea. I called the used bookstore where I bought The Wrong Man and spoke to a salesperson. "I bought The Wrong Man from your store a few weeks ago," I said. "And inside was a romantic note from someone named Jeff," I continued. "My wife found it and thinks I'm having an affair," I said. "I need to contact the original Jeff who owned the book," I added. The salesperson laughed. "Man, what are the odds? A book called The Wrong Man, owned by 2 guys named Jeff, and with a love note inside," he said. "Look, this isn't funny," I said. My wife needs proof that I'm not the Jeff who got that note, I continued. Can you check your system to see if the previous owner is registered? I asked. We can track sellers if they have an account, he said. But I can't give out their info, he added. Could you at least contact him and ask him to call me? I asked. Sure. What's your name? He asked. Jeff, I replied. As in the author? He asked. I was confused. He laughed again. T. Jefferson Parker, the mystery writer. This conversation was ridiculous, but I had to clarify. I'm Jeffrey Parker, not Jefferson, and there's no T in my name, I said. I gave him my number. And was surprised when my phone rang 20 minutes later. My name is Jeff, and I hear you found a note meant for me, the voice said. Is this some kind of blackmail? He asked. No, not at all, I said. I bought the wrong man, and found a note from a woman named Terry, I continued. I need you to tell my wife that the note was meant for you, not me, I said. The note was in a book? Damn, I've been looking for that note everywhere, he said. If my wife found it, I'd be in big trouble, he continued. I can't believe it ended up in that book, he said. Jeff, I need you to help me out here, I said. No way, I dodged that bullet, and I'm not getting involved, he said. He hung up. Frustrated, I took a few minutes to calm down. And then called him back. Jeff, it's Jeff, I said. I've changed my mind, this is blackmail, I said. If you don't send me a notarized statement saying Terry wrote that note to you, I continued. I'll send a copy to your wife, I said. How does that sound? I asked. Man, that's cold, he said. Not as cold as it's been in my house since my wife found that note, I said. Okay, I'll send the statement, he said. But you promise it's over after that? He asked. Absolutely, just get it notarized and send it to me, I said. I gave him my address and waited. Emma and I became physically engaged 5 weeks into dating while working at the NGO. And by summer's end, we were exclusive. During her senior year, I frequently drove 60 miles to Princeton to see her. And we spent Thanksgiving at her parents' New York apartment. Her mother was cold, but I hoped to win her over. Emma spent winter break with my family, where she felt at home. Her parents likely thought our relationship was just a phase, expecting it to fade like her previous ones. By summer, I proposed, and she accepted. Living in Philadelphia, close to her parents in Manhattan, was ideal. However, after we got engaged, her mother tried to break us up. Emma resisted, but her mother continued to undermine our marriage subtly. A problem I didn't fully grasp until much later. Her parents' attitudes complicated my decisions. Should I focus on my career to impress them or spend more time with Emma? It's a tough balance many young professionals face. When Emma returned from her parents' house on Monday, she was still distant. I decided to wait for an email from the other Jeff before talking to her. Continuing to sleep in the guest room. Desperate, I did something I'd sworn off. I read her emails while she showered. I copied them to an external drive. Reading them confirmed my fears. Her mother was trying to turn Emma against me. She encouraged Emma to move to New York and transfer to her company's office. There was also a message from a guy named Grant Martin about staying in touch. Despite our strained relationship, Emma's responses gave me hope. She expressed love for me and a desire to save our marriage. Despite her mother's influence. Later that evening, I received a notarized letter from the other Jeff, confirming he was the one who wrote the note in the book. When Emma came home, I had dinner ready. After eating, I handed her the letter, and her expression softened. She sat on my lap, kissed me, and said, "This makes me very happy, Jeff. Almost as happy as having you back in my arms," she added. We talked about her feeling of being an accessory in her parents' lives. And she explained how her mother had recently tried to rebuild their relationship. Her mother even advised against starting a family, fearing it would ruin Emma's career, just as she believed it had ruined her own. I was stunned. Emma had wanted to start a family last year. But now her mother was driving a wedge between us. When I questioned if there was someone else, Emma assured me she would never cheat. Still concerned about her spending weekends in New York, I suggested a getaway. But Emma declined, saying her mother had invited her to see The Merchant of Venice. Disappointed, I agreed to postpone our trip. By Thursday, I took a risky step. I sent fake emails to her mother and Grant Martin, designed to infect their computers with viruses that would give me access to their emails. It was a dangerous move, but I felt it was necessary. Looking back, our wedding, orchestrated by Lois Taylor, felt more like a show than a celebration. Despite her disapproval, she hosted a lavish affair. My family kept things simple, while the Taylors invited everyone they knew. The whole thing felt like a farce. The first few years of our marriage were good, balanced between work and fun. Living in Philadelphia, away from her parents, gave us peace. We even talked about starting a family, beginning with getting a dog named Samson. However, just as we were ready for kids, things began to unravel. By Thursday night, both Grant and Lois had opened the fake emails, and I gained access to their correspondence. What I discovered was shocking. Grant was having an affair with Emma's mother, and they were planning to set him up with Emma. Despite this, I decided to confront the situation directly. After arranging for Samson to stay at a kennel, I took the Amtrak to Manhattan, determined to save my marriage. By the time I arrived, I had a plan. I bought a Yankees cap, a cheap camera, and staked out her parents' house. While waiting, a woman approached, noticing my obvious surveillance. She offered to help, revealing herself as a private investigator. Surprised by her offer, I agreed to pay her for photos of Emma and Grant if they met. What started as a simple stakeout had turned into something far more complex. Her words stung, but she continued. "This neighborhood is full of wealthy people with shady morals," she said. "I'm here all night watching the building next door," she continued. "Waiting for a lawyer to sneak out with his mistress," she said. "His wife hired me to get evidence," she added. She extended her hand. "I'm Karen Whitney." As Karen talked, I kept my eyes on Emma's building. Soon, Emma walked out with a man I assumed was Grant. "There they are," Karen said quietly, snapping photos. Before they got into a cab. "Got them. Now what?" she asked. "Now I focus on the building next door," she said. "Let's sit for a minute, it's still early," she suggested. We sat on a nearby bench. "First, give me your email, and I'll send the pictures," she said. "That'll be $100, she continued. "If you want more when they return, it's another $100, she said. "Sure," I agreed. "If you give me the guy's name, for $300 more, I can dig up information," she offered. "We'll need a contract for that with your agency," I said. "No, I'm a freelancer," she said. "Today, I'm working as a contractor for the agency hired by the lawyer's wife," she continued. "And it's okay to hire you directly?" I asked. "As long as it doesn't interfere with my contract work, it's not a conflict," she said. I texted Karen my email and Grant's full name. We chatted for a while, and I ended up telling her the whole story of why I was trying to save my marriage. Karen turned out to be a great listener. Curious, I asked, "How did you become a private investigator?" She laughed. "I spent 15 years with the NYPD, 6 in counterterrorism. After getting shot in the leg and losing everything below the knee, I went on disability," she said. She pulled up her pant leg to reveal a prosthetic. "Now I use my skills to make money and set my own schedule," she continued. "It's working out so far," she said. "I usually don't work weekends, but I'm doing a favor for a friend," she added. As she spoke, Karen snapped a few photos of a couple getting into a limo across the street. "Are you going to follow them?" I asked. "No, it's too risky," she said. "I'll grab a bite nearby and wait for them to return," she continued. "Most just have dinner and head back to a love nest," she said. "There's not much romance in these cases," she added. "So, what do mistresses get besides dinner?" I asked. You'd be surprised, she said. Some women earn as much as a good secretary, she continued. They're willing to sell their soul, she said. No thanks, I said. What about the wives? I asked. Wives are half our business, she said. Some poor guy working 60 hours a week finds out someone else is getting what should be his, she continued. The worst is when DNA tests show the kids aren't his, she said. Those cases end badly, she added. I had one client break into his ex-wife's house and kill himself on her bed, she said. That must have hit her hard, I said. Not really, she was out of town, she said. The housekeeper found the body, and by the time she got back from a spa, the place was cleaned up and repainted, she continued. There aren't many happy endings in this business, she said. We sat quietly for a moment. I wasn't going to do anything drastic. But I realized how much I'd miss my wife if we divorced. If you're getting a snack, can I join you? I asked. She shook her head. No, Jeff, go home. I'm meeting my husband at the diner. He'll be there in 10 minutes, she said. She pointed to her wedding ring, which I noticed for the first time. What a detective I am, missing that detail. As we walked, I realized I was limping. Too focused on my problems. I tried to change the subject. Does this work affect your marriage? I asked. It affects some of my coworkers, she said. But I'm lucky, my husband, Bill, understands my job, she continued. He makes sure I know I'm loved, she said. Like tonight, when he arranged for his mom to watch our boys so we could have dinner together, she added. As we neared the diner, I saw a tall, fit man waiting. He was my height but more muscular. Karen hugged him, and he kissed her while keeping an eye on me. Bill, this is Jeff, my new client, she said. Jeff, this is my husband, Bill, she introduced. We shook hands, both giving firm but not overpowering grips. Bill smiled and asked, tight end? Good guess, did you play? I asked. No, I was a heavyweight wrestler at Penn State, he said. His smile grew wider as he hugged Karen. Hungry? He asked me. No, thanks, I'm heading to the train station, I said. Karen, send me the contract when you can, I said. I'll sign it and return it with payment, I added. Thanks for taking my case, I said. Karen laughed, is that the right word? I shook Bill's hand again. It was a pleasure meeting you, Bill, I said. You're a lucky man, but I think you both are lucky, I added. Thanks for inviting me to dinner, you both give me hope, I said. Bill glanced at Karen, who whispered, I'll explain. I left with a smile. Sunday morning, I overslept, catching up on missed sleep. After brewing coffee, I started my laptop and downloaded all of Grant's archived emails. I also decided not to wait for Karen to call, but to reach out to her later that morning to find out what had happened Saturday night after I left. With coffee and a bagel, I began reading Grant Martin's emails. It quickly became clear that Grant was a manipulative idiot. Lois Taylor wasn't the only married woman he was involved with. And one email in his outbox answered many of my questions. The email read, Dennis, it's time to return the favor. I've been entertaining a high society woman for the past 4 months, it continued. She's so snobbish, she only gives me the time of day because of my so-called pedigree, it said. What she doesn't know is my father disowned me years ago, it added. You're probably wondering why I'm bothering with her, it said. 2 reasons. Her daughter's a knockout, and the old lady is trying to wreck her daughter's marriage, it continued. So she can set me up with her, it said. Once we're together, she thinks we can keep seeing each other without anyone suspecting, it added. Can you believe that? It asked. I also work for her husband, who's clueless, it said. She's pushing her daughter to leave her husband, and I'm just waiting to swoop in, it continued. But I'm not the marrying type, it said. Oh, and this woman is worth millions, it added. I'm sending you a burner phone, it said. When I call, pretend to be my father, it continued. I need you to play along, don't mess it up, it said. Remember, you owe me from last year, it concluded. Your brother, TK, Grant, it ended. Reading that, I almost felt sorry for Lois, but only for a second. This was way beyond what I could handle on my own. And I hoped Karen could help me figure out the next steps. While waiting for Karen's call, I spent hours on my computer, monitoring everything Grant did online. I even managed to get his user ID and password for his bank. By 2 p.m., I couldn't wait any longer and called Karen. "Hi, Jeff, I've been expecting your call," she said. "Sorry to bother you on a Sunday," I said. "Please apologize to your husband and kids," I continued. "But I need to know what happened last night after I left," I said. "You'll be pleased to hear that your wife came back in a cab just after 10 p.m., she said. Grant walked her to the door, trying to convince her to let him in, she continued. She refused. He tried to kiss her, but she turned away, and he only got her cheek, she said. The doorman didn't let him in either, she added. Grant left, clearly upset, she said. So, your wife didn't give in to his advances, she continued. She got home at a decent time, and nothing inappropriate happened, she said. Except for going on the date in the first place, she added. I was relieved Emma hadn't slept with Grant. But still angry about our crumbling marriage. Remember what you told me last night? I asked. Her mother set her up, I said. It doesn't excuse everything, but it explains a lot, Karen said. Agreed, but you should know this, she said. It seems Grant is also involved with your mother-in-law, she continued. And Lois is trying to destroy your marriage to keep him around, she said. No kidding, that's cold, I said. I've seen a lot in this business, but people's cruelty still shocks me, she said. How did you find this out? I asked. If I tell you, is there some sort of client-detective confidentiality? I asked. No, Jeff, if I'm subpoenaed, I have to tell, she said. So, if it's illegal, you need to decide whether to share it, she added. I thought for a moment and then decided to tell her how I got the emails. Like many others, she was stunned by what I had done. I also mentioned that I had Martin's user ID and password to his bank accounts. You can really access this guy's computer and see his passwords? She asked. Yes, I said. Maybe later this week, you can teach me how to protect myself from people like you, she said. But for now, I'm going back to my family, she continued. We're watching The Wizard of Oz, and my kids are giving me the "When are you getting off the phone?" look, she said. Sorry, Karen, call me tomorrow when you dig up more on Martin's background, I said. And I'll fill you in on the rest, I added. With that, we hung up. And I continued to go through Grant and Lois's emails. By Sunday evening, when Emma returned, I had gathered a lot of information. But had no idea how to use it all. My belongings were still in the guest room. Emma burst into the kitchen where I was sitting with a beer. Jeffrey, where are your clothes? She asked. I ignored her question. How was your date last night? I asked. Her face showed a mix of guilt, shock, and confusion. What are you talking about? I didn't go on a date, Emma said. With such conviction that I might have believed her. If I hadn't seen her get into the cab with my own eyes. What do you call going to a play with an unrelated man? I asked. You might want to look up the definition, I said. There was that look again. Were you following me? She asked. Not that it matters, but I went into town yesterday, I said. I was planning to convince you and your mom that I should take you to the play, I continued. I arrived just in time to see you getting into a cab with some guy, I said. Who was it? I asked. I lied, but it sounded plausible. And I didn't want Emma to know what I really knew. Jeff, my mom got sick at the last minute, she said. And a friend of my parents drove me, she continued. Nothing happened, she said. I pretended to be clueless. And who is this kind friend? Does he have a name? I asked. Grant Martin, he works for my father, she said. I decided to push her. Emma, this is ridiculous, I said. Your parents are trying to split us up, I continued. Think about it, I said. I'll bet you $11,000 your mom miraculously recovered on Sunday, I said. This illness was staged, I continued. How did Grant Martin just happen to be available at the last minute? I asked. It's time to wake up and realize our marriage is on the brink, I said. Emma looked shocked, as if she'd been slapped. I didn't want the argument to escalate. So I left the kitchen and went to the guest room. It was a restless night. And I ended up leaving the house early. Arriving at the office before 7 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, I got a notification on my phone. Emma had sent 2 texts to Sharon Roberts. I figured she had already talked to her mom. And Lois was filling her head with more nonsense. My marriage was circling the drain. Late Monday night, Karen called me at work. Are you somewhere private? She asked. I closed my office door. Yes, what's up? First, remind me about Grant Martin's position at the bank, she said. I've been focusing on his non-work activities, she added. I glanced at my notes. From what I've seen, he's a personal banker, I said. Handling trust accounts and money management for wealthy clients, I continued. Yesterday, I watched him set up wire transfers for 2 clients, I said. I'll confirm the transactions later when I'm home, I continued. I don't want to use my work computer, I said. Did any of those transfers go to foreign banks? She asked. One went to France for a rich kid's tuition and living expenses in Paris, I said. Karen paused before continuing. I dug up some dirt on Grant, she said. He had serious issues in college, enough that his family disowned him, she continued. He moved to New York to escape his past, she said. I also talked to a friend in the NYPD, she said. Last year, a college buddy of Grant's, Dennis Riley, stayed with him for a weekend, she continued. Riley picked up a girl at a bar, brought her back to Grant's place, she said. And when she drank too much, Riley refused to call her a cab and instead attacked her, she continued. When she reported it, Riley claimed it was consensual, she said. And Grant backed him up, saying the girl even hit on him, she added. The DA dropped the case because it was 2 against 1, she said. So, Riley got away with it because Grant lied for him, I said. Exactly, she said. I read Karen the first line of Grant's letter to Dennis. She paused. Looks like Riley owes Grant big time for covering for him. How do you feel about getting back at these 2? She asked. One's a rapist, and the other is his enabler, she said. No question, I said. What's your plan? I asked. You mentioned you could access Grant's computer, she said. How skilled are you? She asked. Could you use his identity to open foreign accounts and transfer his client money? She asked. I know how to access his computer, but I'm not an expert in opening accounts, I said. And I'm not interested in stealing money, I added. If we do this right, no one will lose money, she said. But we need to discuss it in person, she continued. Can you meet tomorrow night? She asked. I'd like to bring a friend, she added. Karen, I have to ask, why are you doing this without expecting more payment? I asked. I agreed to pay you a few thousand for watching Emma and digging up dirt on Grant, I said. Now we're talking about opening accounts and transferring money, I continued. What's in it for you? I asked. I can't afford to pay more, and I certainly can't afford to get caught, I said. This is personal, Jeff, she said. Years ago, someone drugged and attacked me, she continued. I was too embarrassed to report it right away, she said. And by the time I did, there was no evidence left, she added. I filed a complaint, but it went nowhere because it was just my word against his, she said. So, I'm doing this for that girl Dennis Riley attacked, she continued. She deserves to know not every prick gets away with it, she said. And Grant Martin is going down too for helping him, she added. They're both trash, she said. Karen's voice softened as she shared her story. Clearly still painful for her. Although I had only known Karen for a few days. And spent a few hours with her. I was already determined to help her take down these pricks. As my grandmother used to say, sometimes doing the right thing means taking risks. Even if it involves breaking the law. Before we ended the call, Karen asked me to send her all the information I had gathered. From Martin's computer. bank accounts, loans, mortgages, and so on. I promised to get it to her that night. We also arranged to meet on Tuesday night. I made up an excuse to Emma about working late. But it didn't matter much since we weren't talking. And sleeping in separate rooms. That Tuesday night, I met Karen at a quiet pub. She brought along a friend, Hank, who seemed like he had a background in intelligence. Probably from one of the agencies. After I told Hank that I had access to Grant Martin's computer and his banking systems, they laid out their plan. First, we buy a plane ticket to Dubai for Martin using his credit card, Karen said. Next, we open an account in Dubai under his name, she continued. Dubai is a popular place for hiding illicit funds since Switzerland got into trouble with the US Treasury, she said. Then, we set up wire transfers of several million to Dubai, she said. Scheduled for early in the day, she added. I interrupted, wait, no stealing. Hank reassured me, don't worry, none of the money will actually leave the country. We'll make a small mistake in the transfer instructions that delays it, he said. Making it look like Martin tried to steal the money but messed up, he added. I thought for a moment and then agreed, okay, so what's next? Martin has a line of credit with over $100,000 available, Karen said. And $60,000 in a brokerage account, she continued. We'll transfer those funds to the Dubai account, and those transfers will go through, she said. Do you have a problem with that? She asked. Not if it's his own money being transferred, I said. Good, with his funds drained, he won't be able to afford a good lawyer, Karen said. Which will help us go after his buddy, Dennis Riley, she added. And the final step is to send a fake letter from Grant to Dennis, she said. Here, read this, she said, handing me the letter. Dennis, forget about rich old women, I've got bigger plans, it read. By tomorrow, I'll have enough money to last a long time, it continued. At least until I find another rich target, it said. I'm leaving the country, nothing here is worth sticking around for, it added. I got a call today from an investigator asking about your little incident last year, it said. You should have learned your lesson at USC, like I did, it continued. Make sure you get approval before you pull that stunt again, it said. Because I won't be around to cover for you, it added. I'll let you know where I end up, it said. I'm sure the feds will monitor this email after tomorrow, so don't respond, it continued. I'll delete this as soon as it's sent, it concluded. Your brother, TK, Grant, it ended. After reading, I smiled. You nailed his style, especially the misogynistic tone. Karen replied, I also found out why Martin's family disowned him. He and another guy attacked a girl at USC, she said. She had a reputation, and after the incident, she killed herself, she continued. The family paid off the girl's family to keep it quiet and cut ties with Grant, she said. This wasn't the first time they bailed him out, she added. Karen's story only strengthened my resolve to take down Martin and Riley. Okay, I can handle all that with Hank's instructions, I said. But we need to make sure Grant is at home, not at his computer, when this goes down, I said. How do we do that? I asked. Don't worry, Grant will be occupied, we've got it covered, Hank said. Can we do it tomorrow night? I asked. No problem, Karen said. What's the plan for Thursday? I asked. Grant will be arrested early Thursday morning, Hank said. Before he has a chance to act, he continued. It'll look like he was about to flee the country, he said. It's a pleasure working with professionals, I said. Karen and Hank were indeed professionals. With Hank's guidance, everything went smoothly. Grant opened a new account in Dubai. His credit card was used to buy a first-class ticket to Dubai. And the line of credit and brokerage account were set up. The wire transfers were ready for Thursday morning. But the big transfer was intentionally botched, so it never went through. To ensure Grant was in his apartment all night, they used an expensive escort, likely a tactic Hank learned in his former line of work. The escort, accidentally, bumped into Grant after work and convinced him to have a drink with her. Grant, being full of himself, thought his charm had won her over, and ended up taking her back to his apartment for another drink. The woman, experienced in deception, told Grant she had been mistreated by a guy before, and wouldn't let it happen again. She demanded to see his ID. Grant, thinking with his little head, shrugged and handed over his driver's license. Sensing she wanted more, she then asked for his passport. Without questioning her logic, Grant fetched it from his office. She flipped through the pages, making small talk about his trips. Then put the passport down, grabbed his tie, and led him to bed. At 8 a.m. Thursday, Grant Martin opened his door to find two detectives waiting. Despite his claims of innocence, he was quickly arrested, especially after they noticed his passport lying on the table. "Planning a trip, Mr. Martin?" one detective asked, while handcuffing him. Grant knew he had been set up, but didn't know by whom or how. All traces of the viruses on his and Lois's computers had been erased. "I had sent a command to wipe his hard drive before the police arrived," making it seem like Grant had done it to cover his tracks. The police eventually retrieved copies of Grant's emails, including one confessing to giving a false statement, and another outlining his plan to flee the country with stolen money. Thanks to Karen's contacts, the police offered to drop the false statement charges if Grant testified against Dennis Riley. True to his nature, Grant took the deal, leading to Dennis's extradition. Once Dennis learned of Grant's betrayal, the two turned on each other, tearing each other apart in court. Grant received no support from his family this time. Despite his protests, he was found guilty of theft and related charges, and sentenced to 4 years in prison. Dennis, with Grant's testimony against him, got 10 years. By the time Grant testified, the two hated each other so much that Grant's testimony was especially damning. While this unfolded, I had personal matters to address. The day after Grant's arrest, I met with my father-in-law, Mr. Taylor. "I have some things that could hurt Emma if she sees them," I said. "But I think you should decide what to do with them," I continued. "I hired a private investigator to understand why my marriage was falling apart," I said. "And I hope you're as shocked by this as I am," I added. I handed Jonathan a folder of Lois's emails to Grant, avoiding any mention of how I got them. Jonathan read the letter slowly, pausing only to pour us both coffee. I was impressed that he served it himself instead of calling for help. When he finished, he looked at me, clearly troubled. "You asked me not to hurt my daughter," he said. "Knowing her mother used her like this would devastate Emma," he continued. "I'm sorry," I said. "Then don't show her," he said. "I promise I won't bring it up during the divorce," I said. "So, you plan to divorce Emma?" he asked. "That would hurt her too," he said. "That's not my choice," I said. "Your wife is determined to end our marriage," I continued. "And she's convincing Emma it's the right thing to do," I said. "Please call me Jack," he said, surprising me. "Tell me more," he said. "I don't understand how Lois became so controlling of Emma," he said. I explained. Lois told Emma she gave up her career for her, that she was too young when she married and had Emma, I continued. "And that you stopped her from pursuing a career," I said. "She's been laying guilt on Emma," I added. Jack listened intently as I continued. "Emma feels she never had a real relationship with you or her mother," I said. "Seeing how my family interacts, she realized something was missing," I continued. "When Lois finally started paying attention to her," I said. "Emma jumped at the chance for a connection," I added. Jack was hard to read, but he suddenly became more candid. "Do you know what it's like to turn 60 and realize your life is a mess?" he asked. "No, I don't," I said. "I'm just venting," he said. "Lois claimed she gave up her career, what a joke," he said. "The only things she's pursued are manicures and spa treatments," he continued. "She always talked about being a professional tennis player," he said. "But after years of lessons, she still can't hit a decent backhand," he added. "I've spent most of my life building this bank," he said. Working long hours to make it successful, he continued. That's how I was raised, he said. We didn't expect to be best friends with our wives, he said. We focused on business, he continued. I spent more time with my golf buddies than with my family, he said. Because that's what Lois wanted, he added. But until today, I had no proof of her cheating, he said. I was blissfully ignorant, he continued. His honesty caught me off guard. And all I could say was, I'm sorry I had to be the one to bring this to your attention. No, Jeff, I'm grateful you brought this to me, he said. It's one thing to have an affair, he said. But it's another to sacrifice Emma's happiness to keep your lover around, he continued. Especially with one of my employees, he said. Grant was walking around the office, smug, knowing he was with my wife, he added. Well, he won't be for a while, he said. He was arrested this morning for stealing from a client, he continued. And providing false information in a criminal case, he said. If what we heard from the police is true, Grant Martin will be gone for a long time, he added. As for Lois, she has her own trust fund worth millions, he said. Which works in my favor during the divorce, he continued. She'll be lounging at the spa or on the tennis court, shedding crocodile tears, he said. Some new guy will pick her up, and I'll be easily replaced, he continued. She'll lose some social standing, he said. Other wives will avoid her to protect their own marriages, he continued. She'll also lose her relationship with Emma, he said. But from what I've seen here, he said, holding up the folder. She probably won't care much about that, he continued. And Emma, I wonder if it's too late to rebuild a relationship with my daughter, he said. I do love her, but I let Lois control our relationship, he continued. That's another thing I owe Lois for, he said. Somehow, I'll make her pay for all the pain she's caused, he continued. Maybe not right away, but I will, he said. In the meantime, Jeff, I need your help, he said. You say you love Emma. Do you think you can repair your marriage? He asked. I don't know, Jack, I said. Logically, it's not her fault. She was manipulated by her mother, I continued. And it helps that she didn't sleep with Martin, at least I don't think so, I said. But emotionally, that's the hard part, I said. I'm not like you, I said. I just showed you proof of your wife's infidelity, and you didn't shed a tear, I continued. You were a little angry, but you kept your cool, I said. When Emma walked out that second weekend, I cried for the first time in my adult life, I said. I don't know how you do it, I said. Jonathan Taylor looked at me and made a decision. Because I've been bottling up my emotions for over 40 years, he said. Let me tell you a story not many people know, he continued. Right after college, I enrolled in Navy flight school, he said. It was tough, but I passed OCS, he continued. I was so proud the day those stripes appeared on my uniform in front of my parents, he said. But then my life turned into a nightmare, he continued. I messed up and crashed, broke both legs and my back, he said. Worse, my radar intercept officer, Ted Andrews, was killed, he continued. I spent 6 weeks in the hospital, he said. When I could walk without crutches, I went to apologize to Ted's parents, he continued. I'll never forget the look on their faces, seeing the man responsible for their son's death, he said. I returned to the base a broken man, he continued. I cried for days, he said. The Navy discharged me, and I went home, he continued. My parents were kind, they didn't blame me, he said. They sent me to Harvard for my MBA, hoping I could move on, he continued. But not a week goes by that I don't think about what I could have done to prevent the accident, he said. It wasn't because I was drunk or hungover, he continued. It was just a mistake that cost a man's life, he said. Ted's parents never wanted to hear from me again, he continued. But I've dedicated part of my life to his memory, he said. I donate $110,000 every year to the USO and a fund for wounded soldiers, he continued. After all that, dealing with an unfaithful wife seems like a small thing, he said. I listened in silence. When he finished, I saw a man carrying a heavy burden for far too long. I realized there was something I could do to help lighten that load. Reflecting on my relationship with Emma, I considered how much her recent behavior had been out of character. Driven by a desire to finally connect with a mother who had never shown her love, my thoughts drifted back to the first time I met Emma 8 years ago. During my work with the NGO, I spotted her on a bench at Columbus Square, looking like she could use a friend. I approached her, introduced myself, and we started talking. "Excuse me, I've seen you at the office," I said. "I'm Jeff Parker from IT," I said, extending my hand. She recognized me, but it was clear she had been crying. Instead of shying away, she offered a faint smile. "Yes, I've seen you too, I'm Emma Taylor," she said, shaking my hand. "May I sit down, or would you rather be alone?" I asked. "No, please sit," she said. Taking a chance, I asked, "It's clear you've been crying, do you want to talk about it?" Emma hesitated. "Did you hear the news about the 2 girls in Sudan?" she asked. Our NGO supported schools in Sudan and other parts of Africa and the Middle East. The girls there were taught reading, writing, domestic skills, and health education, which didn't always sit well with the local population. "No, I've been stuck in the server room all day," I replied. "Yesterday in Juba, 2 sisters were dragged out of class by their grandparents," she said. Upset that the girls' parents allowed them to be educated, she continued. "They accused the parents of turning the girls against Allah," she said. "This morning, we heard the sisters had been mutilated," she said. "Had their clitorises removed with the local imam's approval," she added. I was speechless. I had heard of such practices but had never encountered it firsthand. Emma continued, "I can't understand how people who claim to follow God can think it's right to destroy what God created." She paused. "Are we really helping, or just making things worse?" "I don't have the answers, Emma," I said. "But my grandmother taught me something when I was a kid," I continued. "I was visiting my grandparents on their farm during a big storm," I said. "We saw a funnel cloud and tried to corral all the chickens into the barn," I continued. "We got most of them in when Grandpa told me to head to the basement," I said. "I didn't understand why we were abandoning the rest," I continued. "But Grandma explained, if you try to save everyone, you might end up saving no one," I said. Emma looked at me with those beautiful eyes, really listening. "I think you could apply your grandmother's wisdom to what your organization does," she said. "Save as many girls as you can from a hopeless life," she continued. "You won't save them all, but don't lose sight of the good you're doing," she said. "Your grandmother sounds wise," she added. "But why do you say, your organization?" she asked. "Don't you work for the NGO?" she asked. "Not exactly, I'm with KPMG, under contract to upgrade their systems," I said. "When this is done, I'll move on to another assignment," I continued. "That's the life of a consultant," I said. 2 months from now, I could be in California or Virginia," I added. "That must be hard to make friends, living like that," she said. "I can't imagine such a nomadic life," she continued. "I've only lived in 2 places. Here in Manhattan and at Princeton, where I go to school," she said. "You're still in school?" I asked. "Yes, I have 1 year left at Princeton," she said. "I'm here as an unpaid summer intern," she continued. "That must be tough," I said. "Not really, my father believes in community service," she said. "He gives me an allowance and covers my tuition, so money is not an issue," she continued. "When I graduate next spring, I'll try living on my own," she said. "For now, I'm focused on my studies and helping out here," she added. "That sounds nice," I said, realizing it might come off as sarcastic. But Emma didn't take offense. "Yeah, I'm lucky," she said. "I have friends who struggle to pay tuition and rent," she continued. "Having financial support makes being a student easier," she said. As Emma spoke, I realized how different she was from the wealthy people I'd met at Wharton. In our 30-minute conversation, she expressed genuine concern for strangers in Sudan and her classmates. I later learned that on the same day we met, she had been hit by a cab on her way to work. and had a large bruise on her thigh, which she didn't mention until days later. This was someone worth knowing. But before I could say anything, she surprised me again. "Jeff, you mentioned it's hard to make friends when you're always moving," she said. "Would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" she asked. Of course, I replied. That was the start of our friendship, which grew into a relationship. Now threatened by her mother's manipulation. After leaving Jack's office, I returned home. Emma walked in to find dinner on the stove. A bottle of Merlot breathing, and a dozen red roses on the table. It took her a moment to notice the three-place settings. "I see we're expecting guests. Who?" she asked. "Your father," I said. "My father? What about my mother? Did something happen to her?" she asked. "No, nothing happened to your mother," I said. "Your father and I just want to talk with you," I continued. "Go wash up, he'll be here any minute," I said. Thank goodness Jack rang the bell right away. I don't think I could have held Emma back much longer. My plans for a quiet dinner were likely too optimistic. The wine was poured, and the pasta was on the plates. But as soon as we sat down, Emma demanded to know why her father was there without her mother. Jack took the lead, explaining what Lois had been up to over the past few months. Emma became hysterical, crying, "No, no, no," until Jack moved with her to the couch, where she wept on his chest. I cleaned up the kitchen, took Samson for a walk, and gave them some privacy. When I returned half an hour later, Emma met me at the door. Her eyes still red. "Jeff, I'm so sorry," she said. "Please tell me you want to stay together," she continued. "I do, Emma, I never stopped loving you," I said. "My biggest fear was that you had changed your mind and would leave me," I said. "But I was wrong, you were manipulated by your mother," I continued. "And now that's over," I said. "And my father, he wants to mend our relationship," she said. "But he's afraid I'll be wary after what happened with my mother," she continued. "He wants us to work on repairing our marriage first," she said. "He's going on vacation soon and wants to take us to an island in the Bahamas," she said. "To get to know us better," she added. "That's wonderful," I said. "We'll figure out the details later, but for now, that sounds great," I said. "Let's try to eat," I said. I reheated dinner, so the pasta isn't perfect, but it will do, I said. The three of us sat down to dinner again, taking the first step toward healing. Though it took almost a year for Jack to find the time for a 2-week vacation with us on the island. He spent most weekends with us, reconnecting with Emma and getting to know the daughter he regretted not bonding with earlier. Like I did when I first met Emma, he was pleasantly surprised by her kindness and selflessness. Having Jack involved in our lives helped Emma recover from her mother's betrayal. Over the next few months, we worked on rebuilding our marriage. It was easier knowing Emma had never cheated or lost her moral compass. The night with Grant was purely platonic. Though Grant had tried, he had met the wrong woman. We eventually spent a week with Jack and Emma on Cat Island in the Bahamas. Emma stayed a few extra days with her father after I returned to work. My project was completed on time and on budget. And I was promoted to IT director with a nice bonus. Emma also had to be convinced she could still wear a bikini on the island, despite her new curves. Our son, Paul Jonathan Parker, named after both grandfathers, was born a little over a year after that dinner. Our daughter, Claire Emma Parker, named after my mother, was born 2 years later. Jack retired at 63 and now spoils his grandchildren, even buying a small apartment nearby as a second home. Things didn't go as well for Lois. Jack divorced her shortly after our meeting, though it likely cost him a fortune in legal fees. The evidence of her attempt to destroy her daughter's marriage, along with her millions in trust funds, allowed Jack to walk away without paying alimony and retaining enough assets for a comfortable retirement. Once Lois's scheming became public, she became a pariah. She first moved to Palm Beach, but her reputation followed her. She was denied membership in local tennis clubs and spent 9 months there without making a single friend. She then moved to Palm Springs, thinking distance would help. But though she mingled with the wealthy, she couldn't compete with younger women for attention. Like many aging women with low self-esteem, she resorted to plastic surgery, which unfortunately left her looking unnatural. I only know about her failed facelift because 2 years after Claire was born, Lois showed up at our door. When I answered, it took me a moment to recognize her. I didn't even open the screen door. "Lois, what are you doing here?" I asked. I made no effort to hide my lack of warmth. "I want to see my daughter and grandchildren," she said. "Lois, you're not welcome here," I said. "No one in this house wants to see you, now go away," I continued. It took everything I had not to shout. "You have no right to keep me from seeing Emma and the kids," she said. "Open the door," she demanded. "You don't get it, Lois," I said. "Emma doesn't want to see you," I continued. "And we do everything to keep you from poisoning our kids with your bitterness," I said. I started to close the door but paused. "What have you done to your face?" I asked. The words slipped out. Lois looked stunned as I shut the door. She didn't give up easily. The next day, while I was at work, Lois called the house. Emma later told me the conversation was brief. Emma confirmed that Lois was persona non grata in our home and around the kids. Lois tried to bribe her, offering $10,000 per visit for the kids' college fund. Emma refused. Lois even showed up at the daycare, which led us to get a restraining order. When she tried to call Jack, he laughed and hung up. Last we heard, Lois was back in Palm Springs with a gigolo who had already taken a significant amount of money from her. How sad. Sometimes bad things happen to bad people. It reminded me of my final act against Grant Martin. Using an alias, I sent him a letter. A short, 8-sentence poem. "Your lawyer said you're innocent, but the jury thought otherwise," it read. "For the crime that brought you down, justice found its way," it continued. "I'm innocent," you said again, "but karma had its say," it said. "Now you know, you messed with the wrong one," it concluded.